So, yeah, I was, you see, I just posted the agenda a few minutes ago.
I had noticed. I just went to look at it about 5 minutes ago. So.
Oh, okay.
It's here. Yeah. I didn't go earlier.
So I kind of got distracted by another project today.
Oh, excuse me.
And about 5 o'clock, I went to start getting this set up. And I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't do the agenda. I mean, it was partially done. It just wasn't, the questions weren't finished. So the questions are not great. And it wasn't uploaded and posted. So I was rushing around at the last minute on that. So anyway, I hope Rick is feeling better, and I hope he is going to. Here he is.
This is an extremely long chapter on AIDS.
Oh yeah, that's why we're doing it in four parts.
It is very long. Is it there? Where are you?
Hey. You look good. You feeling better?
So now it's the thighs. I think I have a nerve thing, or I must have a congenital disease. When I was a kid, like for no reason, all of a sudden, I would fall down. Like I couldn't hold my knees. My knees would give up, and I couldn't feel my knees anymore. And I've always had very flexible, tendons and stuff. It's not an advantage because I kind of broke myself not realizing it. So maybe I have something, because it's not just, it's going where I didn't get injured in the past. So I'm like, nah, come on. But maybe. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. It's in the family. We have fragile tendons, but it's the problem is that with the lockdown, I stay too still long, same position. I don't walk enough, so the body reacts by saying, okay. Yeah. It's gonna hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's everybody going?
Good.
Oh, okay. So I was just saying, I kind of was hurriedly putting the agenda together at the end. So these are not really great questions, but hopefully it's something to work off. And Venita was commenting on how long this chapter is, and it is. That's why I have it broken down into 4 parts, Venita, because it's pretty ridiculous. But anyway, I guess the topic of HIV is bringing us closer and closer to the present day, and and so far I can see a lot of parallels to the COVID situation and lessons we obviously didn't learn with HIV. So let's go on and get started, and I'll just say welcome everybody to Cluster 1 of Reading for Change, A Collective Journey. This is the first book we're reading under the title Reading for Change. We are here. We started on August 26th and are going to be here through February 24th because it is actually a big book and we are just taking it slow. But whatever you wanted to know about a plague and then some, Laurie Garrett has shared with us in this book, The Coming Plague, Newly Emerging Diseases in a World Out of Balance. And you can learn more about Reading for Change on Facebook, where we post our invitations. as well as YouTube, where all of the other video recordings related to this book are housed. As Venita was just saying, this is a very long chapter that we're in. Tonight, we're focused on the second quarter of chapter 11, Hatari, Veni Dogo Dogo, which apparently means danger, a very little thing, the origin of AIDS. So this chapter altogether is about 100 or so pages, which is, a whole, I guess what, a quarter, 20% of the book. My name's Michelle Odom. I'm located in Brooklyn, New York, and happy to be here. And Venita.
My name is Venita, and I'm joining you from Cromwell, Connecticut. And here's my book. Welcome.
And Rick.
Hi, Rick Ferry from Queens, New York.
New York. Happy to see you. Venita and I, even though, we're best friends, we talk all the time. But last week, just the two of us being here without you, we were like,
Rick.
It was so strange. Even when I was sitting, it was hurting. It was tough. I don't know. That's why I have to take an appointment. I told you I would, but I have to.
You haven't done that yet?
Don't know. We missed you so much last week. It was like, oh my goodness. And we had to talk and the whole time, and we missed you and that's all we talked about. Oh, we missed Rick so much. And then the night we're like, Michelle said, well, I haven't heard from Rick. That's a good sign. Maybe that means. And I'm like, okay.
I haven't, and we couldn't celebrate, so.
Right. The election. Yeah.
Maybe my body gave up of all the tension. That's I don't know. Maybe I was.
That's what happened.
That's my explanation.
It could be.
Okay. Venita, will you read the summary, please?
Yes, but before I read the summary, let's go over our circles rules for engagement. Each person has 3 minutes. When you hear the buzzer, you have 10 minutes, 10 seconds, I beg your pardon, to wrap it up. If you need more time, that is not a problem. Rick, you can talk as much as you want because we missed you last night or last week. Just let me know, raise a finger, and that'll mean you need another minute. No worries, okay? All right, so the summary. Are there words in here I can't pronounce, Michelle? Okay, let's see.
Yeah, the Vinny, just skip it.
Okay, because I didn't read it beforehand. I'm like, are there words? Okay. The summary. In the second quarter of chapter 11, Hatari, Veni Dogo, which means danger, a very little thing. The origins of AIDS, page 310 to 334. Politics and economics impede early actions to address concerns on the nation's blood supply. Dr. Fauci's team discovers abnormalities in the B cells of AIDS patients as European and American scientists race to discover what virus is causing AIDS. Where am I? I lost my thing. Where am I? Oh, as conspiracy theories abode among the public, and HIV is identified. Key points. When we start with that, the standard questions are: what, if anything, did you learn in this week's readings? What was the most interesting thing that you in this week's Am I reading this correctly?
I
What
think
was
it's
the
to you,
most?
but I read like you. I think it's to you. Sorry. I think we're all tired. What was the most interesting thing to you? Yeah. But
Oh,
I
I'm
read like
sorry.
you, but
See, I
I was like,
told you I
what?
was tired. Okay, I told you I'm tired tonight. It's
I was
like
about to blame Michelle, but I was like, no, wait, it's us.
it's I was
I
gonna
was
say,
thinking like you.
okay. What was the most interesting thing to you in this week's reading? Okay, I'm tired. Question number 3. What questions or discussion starters occurred to you from the readings this week? Oh, from this week's readings. Okay, okay. Rick, why don't you take it? Okay.
Okay. What I learned is that, again, ideology and sensitivity has nothing to do with facts, and the whole bathhouse story is well known by epidemiologists that people thought it was homophobic, was actually trying to stop the spread. And it's delicate sometimes to take actions in public health. Like there's a very controversial thing where they run clinical trials in Africa for vaccines for COVID and other vaccines in priority. The reason is, and people are really worried about them being used as guinea pigs, but the reason is even darker. It's not labs that are at fault here, it's governments. Africa will never get these vaccines through commercial route. So the only way they get it is through massive clinical trials because it's free and you have to fund the drugs. So we're at that point, in history where unfortunately some necessary actions due to the conditions of things need to be taken that can seem insensitive to the plight of a certain community. And that reminds me of smallpox, forcing people to get vaccinated. So the question is still, to what point is epidemiology not threatening liberties? I know it's like a right-wing topic, but in the end it is, because think about it. Oh, to help Black people, we're not going to tell other Black people that we're testing on them in prisons because they're criminals. It could make sense, apparently, but it doesn't. It's unethical. But you know what I mean? So when do we stop, I think that AIDS and all these diseases like COVID, unfortunately, inherit from the fact that people don't trust doctors, scientists anymore. Because how many times did these guys, circumvent the rules? But yeah, what I learned is that it's a more important topic than we think. How we approach a disease when it affects a community more prevalently than another.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That that makes me want to read question 6, which is medical research money per se was not usually a partisan matter in the United States. Republican Nixon started the war on cancer. Democrats Johnson and Carter bolstered funding for cancer and heart disease research. But AIDS was unique. It touched every nerve that polarized Americans: sex, homosexuality, race, as in Haitians, Christian family values, drug addiction, and personal versus collective rights and security. And this is not a very thoughtful question, because this is a part of me rushing at the last minute. Did you realize scientists could be so hampered in finding the funds needed to do work that benefits society? But a part of, I think, where I was going with that one was that was a big piece of what was going on in this section of the book. There's this term guerrilla science that came up that I had never heard. But it had to do with the scientists kind of just, cobbling pieces of money from here and there and working without money and just doing whatever they felt they needed to do to try to get the initial work, the initial research done on what was this new disease. because the political system and society, I guess, as a whole, really, we're just so disinterested in looking for money to do anything that had to do with those populations, uh, gays, Haitians, drug users, etc. But as we know, uh, ultimately AIDS would affect a much wider, put a much wider population at risk. And it does kind of remind me of what's going on today with COVID in the sense that there seemed to be, this initial interest in what's it called, the war on warp speed, whatever it is, in the beginning. And then the demographics came out publicly, that more people of color were dying. And, and there may be no correlation, but it wasn't long after that, that that the political system seemed to lose its interest and will in fighting this disease. And now here we are so many months later, and virtually and every state is a hot spot. The rural communities are suffering. Um, it, it's affecting obviously a much wider population, and so it's that the prejudice, racism, really delays and threatens public health.
But I'm suspecting one thing, unfortunately, that was engineered. One North Dakotan out of 1,000 have died in the past 6 weeks.
Wow.
Those are white people. And it arrives at the moment of transition when Biden will take power. I wonder if Trump didn't engineer that, say, look, I leave, white people now get infected. Vote for me in 2024. And I'm disgusted by the situation. That's all. And, it's just what's a real despair is like people have become, they always say sheeple to other people, but they pretend that if they don't have clear instructions, they're not going to do anything thoughtful. When they tell you to wear a mask and practice social distancing, they're not telling you outside remove the mask. Inside, if you have a mask, you can cram up in 1,000. Or, when they said stay close to your close inner circle, that didn't mean your friends and family and go see them and move around. And then after that, doing the same thing. That's why we have this surge. And that's why I'm now advocating that we keep open under very strict rules in terms of how not the people, but the providers of services, we need to open outdoor entertainment. We need people to be able to gather in safe conditions and have fun, because when we close everything down, people gather inside apartments and the cups and nobody can see that. And you have 40 and you can't contact trace. That's what's happening in Europe. That's what happened in the UK during the summer. Don't go on vacation, stay home and be with your family. Now that's why they're telling people don't go for Thanksgiving, but they're idiots. And I now support keeping some activities open as much as possible. But instead of telling entrepreneurs or churches you can't do that, we should tell them, okay, the government's going to give you money and we're going to give you materials to make these places safe. We don't have a choice. We're not going to keep on going like that for another year. People are going to go insane.
Yeah.
They already have. Which brings me to the political environment. I heard Michelle say because of discrimination, it wasn't really a big issue. It's the gays and the drug addicts. Well, also too, because of our political environment, which is the adult version of Alice in Wonderland, I have my own thoughts about. Have you read that book? It's fabulous.
Yeah, but don't insult Alice in Wonderland. Actually, it's
I
poetic,
know.
People are insane
Yes.
but poetic in the book. This is just insane and crude,
So yeah, but it reminds me of that. So, anyways, what was I saying? I'm tired. Okay.
Alice.
Oh yeah. And today I was listening to CNN and also to Wall Street, and they said the issue is trying to get people to take this warp speed vaccination. And it brings you back to when a lot of old people, and then they said in Black communities were catching COVID and dying. It didn't seem to be a big issue. However, there's a renewed interest now that Pfizer and what is it called, Moderna
Mhm.
have announced their vaccinations. But you got to be very careful. And they're right. They're having a hard time having minorities, aka Black people, take these vaccinations. Now suddenly there's a renewed interest. And
Yeah,
let
but
me tell you why there's a renewed interest.
I
Because
reassure you,
now we need
Benita.
we need some guinea pigs.
No,
This is
you're
what
not in a
we
lifetime you're getting this vaccine.
yeah,
This vaccine is mRNA. It requires a fridge at a sub
zero.
100 degrees.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it can't go to Africa. Nobody's got those fridges are super expensive. They're
Right.
top level, and here's the horror of it. So you're right about guinea pigs, and yeah, but this time, this one vaccine is, and I read the study. Yeah, I know the technology. It's different from what they used to do. It's revolutionary. It's efficacious, but poor people won't get it. It's too
Mhm.
expensive. The fridge alone, your provider, your healthcare provider in his office, the clinics don't have that. It's as expensive as an MRI apparel because it
Yeah.
has to keep that temperature at all costs. Otherwise,
Right.
the vaccine is useless.
Right.
So
Mhm.
think about it. They have something that works. That's why we're all very happy. But we know it's going to take at least 2 years to get the people who need it, the
Yes.
vaccine. But rich people,
Well, yeah, rich people first.
yeah.
But before they even do that, we're going to have experiment on the poor people, and
Oh no, it's done. Oh, they already
they
did
will
it.
always spend the money, whatever it costs, to experiment on poor people before they give it to the rich people.
It's already been done. And they were trying to recruit, and that's funny because Moderna and Pfizer. So they're not Moderna's warp speed, but not Pfizer. Pfizer didn't get a single dime from the taxpayer.
Yeah, I heard
And
that.
they
Yeah.
told to Ivanka to shut up. The CEO was like, we did that on our own. So,
Right.
very proud of himself. Like, no. And the thing is that vaccine, they had a problem in August because they were trying desperately to get African American patients, and nobody wanted because people are like, yeah, we heard about you. We know the story. Like you're going to test rapidly something. Yeah. You're like, yeah, but we don't know if it's going to work on you. It's okay. If it works on the white person, it will work on us. Thank you.
Right.
But no, you're right. But what really worries me now is that I'm seeing a vaccine being accessible only to some people. That's why Fauci was saying, yeah, but if nobody gets it, it's stupid.
Yeah. Let's see. I didn't get this posted. Wow.
What's the matter?
No, I was thinking about something else.
Oh.
Never mind.
You know what they're
there
going
was
to do
something
in poor neighborhoods? They don't want to talk about it yet. Lotteries. It's a principle in epidemiology when there's a major pandemic and you don't have enough supply, lottery. You vaccinate first vulnerable people as much as possible, supposedly, but with those fridge problems, we'll see. And then you run a lottery. Not very cool process. Then you have riots in pharmacies. You'll see. Everybody's anti-vaccine until they see the number of casualties we're going to get in December.
It's going to have to come in my house and get me, Rick.
No, but
And
I mean, if you want it, you'll have to go through a lottery system. If you don't want it, no problem. But nobody's going to enforce. They can't enforce vaccination. It's against ethics. Really, you can't. There's no mandatory vaccination anywhere in the world. what they do is that they block you access to certain services. Like you can't go to public school in France if your parents are not vaccinated, but you can be schooled from home.
Yeah, here's the same way, of course. Yeah.
But you can force.
Just along the same lines of what we've been talking about, I'm going to read question 4 on reluctance of public health officials to close bathhouses and reluctance of bathhouse owners to scare off customers by posting signs. So what's your sense of how folks are reacting to most recent curfew and other restrictions? So one thing I wanted to say about that was I was asking my girlfriend, Leah, what are they really saying with this curfew? New York now has a 10 p.m. curfew, which doesn't bother me because I am always home by 10 p.m., even before COVID. So, but I know some people have been having a bad reaction to it. So she explained it to me. So I want to share that with you because she's this party animal kind of person. So she said that they're not really explaining it very well to the public, but the issue is that because someone on TV had said, so what happens? COVID only comes out at 10:01 p.m. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't. So she said, what happens is during the day, people are usually running around and by themselves and, just going to work and doing whatever they do. If they stop in at a bar after hours for happy hour, they're kind of taking it down a notch, but they're still kind of in work mode, but they're relaxing a little bit. She said, but at 10 o'clock, something happened. And she reminded me of the song, The Freaks Come Out at Night. And so she said, at 10 o'clock, you've now had several cocktails. And, you're ready to rip your clothes off and you're hot and you can't wear a mask and you want to kiss people and stick your tongue down the throat.
No, it's another reason.
And this is why 10 o'clock is the bewitching hour.
Well, 10 o'clock is the hour where you have fewer cops, you have fewer firefighters, you have fewer ambulances. So it's what they don't tell you is that it's not for COVID per se, is that during the day they can enforce the rules. They have enough cops out there and they can see that something is abnormal. During the night, if they shut down everything, what happens is that if somebody goes have a party at their home, people will see from a distance. So it's really pure enforcement. It's nothing, I agree with you, it's not about managing the pandemic per se, it's about managing the forces that try to enforce the rules. So you end up with a situation they're not explaining to people because they've been used for so long to talk to people like they're idiots. Instead of saying, guys, the reason why we closed down is that you guys are going out and starting to party again. We don't have enough cops, so we're shutting down. So if you party, we'll see you. We'll know where you are because there's light there, in the bar. It's as simple as that.
That makes sense because I was wondering why that was so. Because I'm like, COVID doesn't just come out at 8 o'clock. It comes out at 12, 2 in the morning, 6 a.m., 5 a.m.
Exactly.
And I didn't think it's that far, but I was just, to Michelle brought it up. I was wondering what was this 10 o'clock bewitching hour?
But there's a problem with the curfew, is that if people have to go home all at the same time, you're actually undoing the benefit of having everything shut down so you can enforce rules because people are all crammed up at the same time to get home.
Oh.
So the policies don't make sense because instead of having a uniform policy all over the country with healthcare professionals dialing in and out the restrictions, we have an approach that's dumb because regardless of how well we're doing in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, and they're coming here, like you can't stop people from working.
No.
Right. Rick, would you read question 11, please?
Sure. 11. There we go. So HLV3, LAV, and RAV would be renamed the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. Having found HIV and developed a blood test for antibodies against the virus, scientists optimistically look forward in January 1985 to quickly solving all the unanswered epidemiological, pathologic, and virology questions about AIDS. A vaccine and an effective treatment couldn't be far away, they thought. Spoiler alert, according to the website HIV.gov, in 2020, there's still no HIV vaccine, nearly 40 years after the first reported cases of AIDS in June 1981. The government website says the HIV vaccine research has the NIH's highest priority. What do you imagine is happening to this priority in the wake of COVID-19? Governor Cuomo says the polls show 50% of Americans don't trust the vaccines currently being studied for COVID. What thoughts you have on the Pfizer results? See Facebook post for medical apartheid.
And I'm going to read the Facebook post to you. I thought I had gotten it posted, but I didn't. This is a November 14th post by my friend Michael Scipio. During the height of a 1996 meningococcal meningitis epidemic, for example, scientists offered Pfizer's experimental drug Trovon, also called Floxacin, to terrified parents in Kano, Nigeria. Nigerians, desperate for medical attention, grasped at Trovon's straw. By the time the experiment ended, 200 children were left severely disabled and 11 were dead. In 2001, at least 211 Nigerian parents sued New York-based Pfizer, alleging that non-FDA approved experiments had killed or injured their children, that Pfizer failed to obtain the requisite approval from local leaders, and that the pharmaceutical giant failed to administer standard therapies with proven efficacy, such as Pfizer's own ceftriaxone, to those children who continue to deteriorate after being given Trovon. Peter Ibigbo of Child Rights Africa told Interpress Service, our leaders must not allow Nigerians to be used as guinea pigs by any company to make money. Now that's a quote from Harriet A. Washington, page 392, Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. Now, Venita and I, as a part of the Global Black Feminist Book Group, read Harriet Washington's book, and which brings us up to the early 2000s, as I recall. And it is just chock full on a level that this book is full of stories of experimentation on Black people, starting around the slavery era up to the present. And so, you know, when you hear it kind of in the public discourse, you know, a lot of people know about the Tuskegee experiment, but that really is such a tiny sliver of what Black people have been exposed to. And so she comes up to around 2000, and it's kind of like because there's been now a certain amount of exposure to the experimentation that's been done on Black Americans, the pharmaceutical companies were kind of moving their act offshore to Africa. And so, you know, this whole conversation that's going on now about Americans not trusting the vaccine. If just like I'm saying about the curfew issue, if we don't have a real honest dialogue about why people feel the way they feel, or if people don't understand what it is that you're doing to them, be it the imposition of a curfew or the expectation of taking a vaccine, then it's not even reasonable to expect compliance. And so we've got a lot of non-compliance going on right now, and anticipated non-compliance when the vaccines do hit the streets. But what I don't see going on is a lot of honest dialogue about how we got here and why we should think anything would be different now.
So there's one thing we must never forget. Africa was for years forgotten by pharmaceutical companies, except for, malaria, but that was more the government trying to show their muscles, like we're so powerful. And there were, during your lifetime, I wasn't born, but you both remember the scandal of children that were vaccinated, and we had horrible side effects in America, and mostly white children. Parents wanted to protect them. And all of these led to the foundation in the early 2000s and in the 90s. It started of independent or private, semi-private, and there's a reason for that, independent agencies from even the government and manufacturers to assess the value of clinical drugs and their safety. So you had the FDA doesn't do that, but ICER in America has started doing that, which is a private, and payers are doing that for P&T committees, but America's special. France created the HAS, the UK NICE, Italy the IFA, and they created those agencies to say, wait, we need to review drugs seriously in the systematic fashion and ask tough questions. And they're the ones who say, you won't get that price. We won't release it to the market and reimburse it until you prove us this, and that. So they do that for a lot. So what did they do when they started seeing that movement in the 90s? They went to Africa a lot, not just Pfizer, a lot of companies, because they thought, because there was no legal framework back in our countries to say that data from Africa was not acceptable. So when we created these new standards, we said, when you recruit people for a clinical trial, you must do it that way. You must have these documents. You must have this thought. They must need hospital. So it's crazy. So if you want to do that in Africa and come back with the data, it won't be reviewed because the data is not up to the standard. That's how they control that. So now in Africa, they're trying to bribe dictatorships by giving drugs that are not fully tested to, how can I say that, have some abilities for developing countries. Like in China right now, they release drugs that are proven here, but China is really tough on drugs. Like, no, we want to prove that. No, not sure. So, and most people can't afford them. So they give them for free, but the reason is leverage locally when the market will develop. So what I'm saying is that simply, if we don't respect the institutions we have institutions of value, the CDC, the FDA. I know Trump destroyed them a lot, but we need to increase their power of oversight of these technologies. That's the rule. We should not distrust them.
Do you think Biden is going to be able to restore the trust?
Yes, because if you want to justify capping drug prices, you need to set up a value framework assessment that's universal to America, no longer dependent only, because private insurers, what they're going to do is prefer drugs. We all know the tiering, generic, preferred, non-preferred, and a specialty. When we see our insurance companies, what drug we can get, that's not clinically sound all the time. It's just these drugs are equal, so-called equal, but this equality is only abstract. In real world, maybe one drug's better for these people or that, but there's no funding for that. So with an agency like a US centralized agency of review of drugs that would say that's your value and that's the money that your drug should get, not more. There's a way to finally control healthcare costs in America and help people get cheaper, more affordable, better health insurance and better healthcare services. But so I hope Biden, he has to do that. That's the next step to make Obamacare a real good healthcare system, just that agency. I don't know if he's thinking about it. He hasn't talked about it that much, but I think he needs to reinforce these powers and make the FDA and CMS even more independent from the government. Like, public service independent agencies from the government, even Medicare. Like Medicare shouldn't obey to the government and to the whimsy of politics. I'm done. Thank you.
And one of the things, I mean, the reason I also read question 4 is because the thing about this chapter, and I am old enough, I guess Venita is too.
Not really.
To remember the fear around the blood supply. Heaven forbid something should happen and you would need a blood transfusion. And so this chapter is really, this section of the chapter is really going into the details about the real conflict that there was. The government agencies responsible for regulating and overseeing and making sure that the blood supply was safe. They weren't interested in it. As question 4 points out, the industry, it was not just the bathhouses, but the blood products industry, the people that supply blood, hospitals, they didn't want to cut into their profits. And so whatever work y'all are talking about doing to make sure this blood is safe, miss me with that, And so, again, Rick, that is just what leaves me concerned that the very people that as mere citizens we rely upon to make sure that our food and drugs and blood is safe, really are not that interested. At least they were in 1985 or whenever.
But look at what happened because of that. An agency, independent agency, one of the most underestimated, unspoken of agencies in America, the one that supervises all transplants and blood supplies. This agency does tremendous work in providing kidneys, and they have an algorithm for one thing. They're the only agencies that has taken into account social determinants of health. So, for example, they know that there's a risk that Black Americans who are male over 50 might not get a kidney transplant because they are at greater risk of rejection. It's genetic. So what they do, and it's strange, only Northern African Americans, they didn't see that in Africa or in Brazilian African Americans, African Brazilians, sorry. So yeah, the agency manages, they're the ones distributing the organs. So for example, if somebody dies and has an organ they make sure that the list is calculated so that Black people are not discriminated, and still the race, even the greater risk of race, is taken into account by the doctor, but is not going to wait in the list. So, for example, if you have lost 4 kidneys already, you're at the bottom of the list, except you're at the top of the list for the perfect kidney, because the more you lose kidneys, the more you'll reject them. It's a rule. So I studied that system for some work. It's brilliant, and it guarantees equal access. The problem is local Medicaid and how doctors rely. And for example, for years, the stigma, look at that. They didn't take organs from drug overdoses. It's stupid. The organs are perfect. The person died of pure heart attack. There's no accident. We know when that person died exactly. They lose blood. We know the organs are perfect, and the person's young usually. I know it's cynical, but for years they're refused overdoses because of drug addicts. Those are the best organs. So
ignore that. Go ahead, Rick.
no, what I was just saying is that in the end, the problem of science is that it is by definition insensitive to people, to their feelings, and it's a problem. Because medicine should be also a practice of humankind, not just a practice of I'm going to cure you. It's a sport. And there are good doctors out there. I heard physicians that said, when is too much too much? We're getting to the point where we can have 4-month-old babies out of the womb being developed when is maybe nature is telling us this kid is not supposed to survive. Maybe at one point we got to stop. At one point do we stop curing cancer in people who are in their 90s? There's got to be, medicine is not just about curing. It's about healing. It's about helping and being there. So the real question is, how do we mix both? The insensitive science, which is I don't care about your feelings, matter, and medicine as a practice of humankind. That's why medicine is not a science. It cannot be. If it becomes a science, it's over. Everybody's a guinea pig.
Yeah. Rick, or Venita, would you read question 7, please?
Piot's AIDS cases in Europe were unlike the Americans. For French scientist Jacques Leibowitz, the most intriguing European AIDS cases were not among gay men. That was simply the American paradigm implanting itself on European soil, he said. Rather, he was moved by the occasional African and Asian immunodeficient individual that he and other European doctors had recently seen. In 1982, Leibowitz put forward the hypothesis that AIDS was a viral disease of African origin that caused illness and death by completely burning out the immune system. Page 320. What are the implications of the US removing itself from WHO and walking its own path in the early days of the novel COVID? Besides being insane?
Yeah.
It's insane. In the middle of a pandemic, you decide, that person, for some ungodly reason, that we don't need the brilliance of other scientists throughout the world. I would say, who does that? But we know who does that. So yes, I think it hurt us tremendously. I mean, I just can't believe, even being a narcissistic sociopath, and I know they don't have a bottom, but that was probably, to me, one of the cruelest things that nutcase has done.
Yeah.
I mean, literally the cruelest thing. I don't care, about the rest of it. You find it, cyber agents and this and that. You decided that you do not want the help of other scientists or the collaboration of other scientists to try to solve a pandemic that's killing people. Oh, I forgot. If you're a Trumper, it doesn't kill you. It's make believe. Mm-hmm. But for those of us that believe, so I just want to say, like, I'm blabbering. I don't know what else to say. It's just insane.
Yeah, and the interesting piece about this this section of the chapter to me was that they were seeing a different population.
Yes.
You know, that the American cases were primarily gay men and drug users in the beginning. You know, and that the European cases were not that.
Yes.
And so when you cut yourself off from collaborating with others, how stupid is that? I mean, I'm like Venita, I just want to blabber. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
No, it just so Laurie Garrett couldn't know, but in 2011, French scientists came up with the ultimate theory of the origins of AIDS. So what's interesting is that the African nation. So here's the thing: when something major happens in the world, guess what? A French guy's got to be behind it at one point. So they discovered that it's what we call the cut hunter theory. So a hunter in near. So we thought it started in the Great Lake region, AIDS, but no, it actually started in French colonies. We believe in the 1920s, people died of AIDS for years. We didn't know because people don't realize that AIDS became a problem when doctors started using computers to share information. In the 1930s, when people were dying of immunodeficiency, we didn't have a test. We didn't, oh, that person died. Probably tuberculosis or pneumonia or whatever. And nobody knew there was a cluster in California and New York at the same time because doctors weren't taking their, hello, doctor, do you have a case in California? People don't realize that AIDS got noticed because communication was starting to work between doctors. But now we know that the first casualty of AIDS in America was 1969 that we have recorded from tissues. A sailor. 1959, a UK sailor coming back from the colonies. And in the 30s and 20s, we have case of what was called Slim Jim disease. That's how the Africans called it. All around the regions that Nigeria, Ivory Coast, people would get very thin and die in a matter of months and die from all infections. And it started probably, so the cut hunter was somebody who was hunting chimpanzee because they have the virus, their own format, and was cut and mixed with blood from the chimpanzee. And we know because a camp of French settlers that had several workers on site that were hunters was wiped out in about, was chronicles wiped out from a strange fever. So, and the reason why Haitians were the link to America was that in the 60s, Zaire invited Haitians to come work in Zaire for the buildup of the new nation, you know. And when they were there, they were probably contaminated because it was then through the ship system of the colonies before they were independent that from the French colonies went to Zaire. And in Zaire, it got through the train system, but people were like, they're dying of malaria, whatever. And these Haitian workers came back home to Haiti, where gay men from San Francisco used to go to get prostitutes. So the great theory is that this is how it kind of worked to get in. But originally, it's a colony thing. It's because we went into where we weren't supposed to go in the rainforest and ate stuff we're not supposed to eat. So again, you know, and the problem is that we would have probably discovered that before if the stigma of homosexuals, Black people, hadn't been so prevalent, because people desperately wanted that to be a punishment for civil rights and homosexuality.
Yeah, and the other thing about globalism, you know, is the guy identified here as the key transmitter, super spreader.
Yes.
Was a flight attendant.
A flight attendant, yes.
Yeah, but the theory has been challenged a lot.
Yeah, but nevertheless, you can clearly see how a flight attendant who has a very, 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 very active sex life.
251 nightstands per year.
Yes. See, I was being kind.
Get so much action.
There's a lot of action on a lot of continents.
Oh.
And you can see how that would be a problem. And that you would want to have as much international cooperation and collaboration as possible. So this, this is just an incredibly, I know Biden's gonna deal with that situation as
Just
well. But
to defend that man, because in the play and the band will play on, they made a mistake. It's not patient 0, it's patient O from his actual middle name. And the reason why he is called a super spreader, we're not even sure he is actually, is that he was the only one who disclosed all of his partners, the only one who helped scientists, while the others partners, when they did contact tracing, would not disclose because they were married, they had children, they the whole the whole gay community, let's not forget that it wasn't in the open, that's why bathhouses were there. So these guys were like, oh, I don't want to give a name. So that guy was actually honest and giving all the names. So thanks to him, we were able to realize it was over. It was already too late.
But you weren't here for me to mess with you last week, Rick.
What?
But one of my questions last week was, I want to hear the story of you wearing the little French maid dress.
Yes, yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah,
no, it's just my girlfriend.
Some weekend dressing up.
My girlfriend, being Japanese, they have maids bar in Japan where young women dress as maids and they don't do anything sexual, and men only come in there. It's like it's like this is no, Disney World, that kind of, that horrible the same kind of colors, cheesy like anime, and they're there uncomfortable, and she comes and she calls them master, do you want drink? Yes, master, here's your drink. And it's not very alcohol, it's only milkshakes, like they're chill, like she's a kid but she's 25. And so it's so strange. And I was like, if I come to Japan, maybe I can get a job as a maid and I'll call people master and serve them, and she said you wouldn't dare. So I bought the costume by Amazon and wore it to show her I was ready to work.
Not your best look.
You know what? I'm sure people would pay for me to call them master that way.
I have to see that, Rick. I really have to see that.
Share the picture. I gotta share. It's on my Facebook. We gotta become friends.
No, and with the unemployment rate being so high here, that's not a bad idea, Michelle.
Yeah, I better get me a little outfit.
I'm having an idea of business that will make conservatives try to assassinate me. A bar, because we're all about free speech, First Amendment, sovereign citizen. A bar where white people are dressed up as slaves and serve only black people. Let's see how it goes for them.
Now, see, Rick, you trying to start a problem here, Rick.
Hey, we're doing that in like, we have Buffalo Bill at Disney World, the guy who genocided Indians. So why can't we have that kind of restaurant? It would be Hooters, but for black people would come in and be served and get called slave, bring me stuff, and white people would be, yes, master. Hey,
in this country,
it's possible.
Anything works. It's definitely possible.
They would burn down the place. But
I'm gonna read.
No, go on. I'm ready.
I'm going to read question 8 real quick. In many ways, the most alarming news for the CDC's AIDS task force members came from the users of injectable drugs. They were surprised, even shocked, by what they learned about the sexual fast lane in the gay community. They were similarly ignorant about the drug-using population. Soon, the CDC group was learning about shooting galleries where junkies could pay to get injected with just about anything by a dealer who used the same needle and syringe on dozens, even hundreds of customers a day. Few addicts in 1983 used just one drug. They use 2, 3, or more drugs, often including cocaine, alcohol, amphetamines, barbiturates, Valium, and other benzodiazepines, heroin. One cocktail to start the day, another to smooth the rocky edges of coming down off the first, and still another to shoot the user straight to temporary paradise. Question. On getting super high and taking multiple drugs, I still have to ask, what are people looking for? So last week, Rick, one of my questions was, with all of the very active sex lives we were reading about, my question was, what are people looking for? And so I'm asking the same thing about all of this drug use. It's society, and and I really wanted to pose those questions. Weren't you a philosophy major, Rick?
Yeah, no. But there's a book. It's super dirty and hardcore, but I would advise both of you to read it. It's the autobiography of Al Jorgensen, the singer of a metal industrial band called Ministry. And to give you an idea, the worst metal stars or rap stars that went into gun shooting say, I need to get away from that guy. Not because he's a bad guy, but because they don't know how he's still standing. He used all the drugs in the world, heroin, crack. He started crack in his 50s, and he's still alive. And he explained in his book, now he's sober, he's just smoking weed, but he explained, I remember him saying about heroin, and he knew all this era. He started in 1983 as a new wave artist at first, and metal artist, whatever. He said, you're trying with heroin, you're trying to come back to the first trip. The first time you use it, it's incredible. Everything after that is never as good. So your body is craving that first time, and you're trying again and again and again, and you're getting worse. And you're still, because you're getting worse, your body is asking even for more of that first bliss of heroin. It says that's the thing. And they ask him, what's the worst drug? I said, crack. I regret starting that. It's bullshit. You just hate yourself. You hate doing it. He says the thing with crackheads, they don't realize that crackheads hate doing crack. But it's the body. So the book is incredible because he explains to what the guy had billions, not billions, but he was rock star and ended up like prostituting himself and giving his guitars to people to get drugs. He's still alive, still playing music. His latest album is called America K. And he got it. The Trump voters hate him. So, but that's the reason.
I guess for me, it's like, what is that initial, because I was just never attracted to those kinds of lifestyles. But I was around. I was around quite a few people. In fact, her story, a piece of her story is based in Newark in the 80s, and I was living in Newark during those years. And there were some people that were close to me that were into heavy drugs. But I was never attracted to it. And I always thought that it was because looking at drug users, it didn't look like fun to me.
I think there's
but I wonder what that initial attraction is for people. Like, is something fundamental missing in our lives? Is this harsh capitalist reality that we have to cope with too much for people?
Drugs have always been used and have been documented all over history. The difference today is that the attraction to these drugs originally is to discover unknown spaces of your consciousness. That was the original topic in the 60s, 70s, the counterculture, Timothy Leary and stuff. And the problem, like everything from the counterculture, is that when it becomes mainstream, people tend to forget that theory is very different from practical life. So when Timothy Leary was saying everybody should be on LSD, he forgets that some people are depressed. It helps a lot of people, but some people might have a very bad reaction. And what I'm saying is that I think it's natural. We've discovered one thing: cows. Why are cows so cool? I like that. You know, they eat a lot of grass, and you know, cows eat sometimes you see them eat, you know, cow shit. Why? There's mushroom on those excrements. These are psilos, psychedelics, and
Cows are high.
the cows are high. We've looked at their brain; they're high. Cats on catnip have the same effect as marijuana on human beings. The exact same. That's why they go crazy. It's weed to them, not to us. To them, it's a chemical in their brain, and it's part of nature in the sense that animals try to get high. Monkeys try to eat rotten fruit to get alcohol. So every animal, even birds do that. So we notice that in nature. The difference is that our ancients were like, wait, this is a religious thing. We should use that to have visions. Yeah, yeah. Let's do that as a ritual. Let's gather together, drink the wine, smoke the whatever they smoke, take the heroin or whatever, opium. But then 19th century Europe found an interesting thing about these spiritual drugs. When provided en masse to the people, it destroys the nation. The Boxer Wars in China, opium.
Yes.
And this is when they said later, oh, wait, cocaine is really cool. Yeah, we love cocaine. We should sell that to poor people so they wouldn't work anymore. We got all the money. Yeah, but it's too expensive. How about we sell them rocks and put them in their neighborhood and then bring in cops and say there's a war? We know it happened. Nixon, his administration introduced crack cocaine in the ghettos. They did it. We know it. And nobody talks about that. This is insane that the government introduced one of the hardest drugs ever to justify segregating even more people that were supposed to be freed 20 years ago through legislation. So, yeah, no.
You know, and now we have the whole, you know, opioid addiction. And, you know, again,
it's a health crisis now.
Yes, it's a health crisis now.
I'm hurting.
You know, but again, you know, because of attitudes toward one population, a problem ends up spilling over and becoming a much wider population, a wider problem.
That's what I say to people is that if we had fixed the crack epidemic through public health care, we would have benefited from that experience for the opioid crisis. But
no, and that's a fact. Well, if you notice though, I remember last year in particular, you had the commercial after commercial, you know, with the poor white boy, you know, that has this health crisis that needs help and, you know, going to these wonderful facilities that nobody can afford. I was trying to figure out what kind of insurance they had. You know, no, I'm really, but they were great places, Rick. I mean, you could vacation there. I mean, really, I'll tell my old boys to go there for a month. You can relax your nerves. Now, I notice, you know, our politicians are so full of shit. I don't see a commercial. I haven't seen a commercial in months about the opioid addiction. Where did it go? Because I have not seen a commercial in months. But in 2019, what year are we in? 2020? Okay. In 2019, no, I'm sorry, with Trump, you know, you forget what year you in. One day's like the next. You get an ass whooping every day, so you don't even know what day it is. Yeah. And but in 2019, there was commercials on there every 5 minutes in the middle of the night. If you wake up, cut that TV on in the morning. But suddenly, I don't hear anything. Where did the opioid addiction go? Other than it's falling on the back of those small towns that have 6,000 people and 5,829 of them addicted to drugs.
Yeah, that's how they called pharmacists. There was a city. How many scripts? 6,000 for 400 people. A city of 400 people.
Yes.
The guy really thought the insurers and CMS wouldn't notice. What?
They don't care. They don't care. But what I want to know is, where is that crisis? Where is it? I don't hear anything about it.
Yeah,
So what brings me to the point, is it all about racism or capitalism?
Capitalism and racism. They work hand in hand. They're different.
What I'm saying, because all these are white folks, and they had on, like, Ralph Lauren pants, nice polo.
I'm a junkie.
No, I'm not trying to be funny. I've never seen that they had the hair frosted and the cool haircuts, and I'm saying to myself, I grew up in the city. I've never seen a junkie look like that. Not in my life.
I'll give you Starbucks for crack.
Yeah, but seriously though, I really do want to know what happened. I don't hear anything anymore. It's the same thing with AIDS. That's all you heard about is AIDS all the time, and all the educational programs, and suddenly, bam, shut down. You would think AIDS went away.
But they're talking about it without mentioning the problem. Why do we have an increase in shootings? Why do we have an increase in gang wars? Because the demand is huge. And everybody wants a piece of the pie. So now, in the past, it was like, I'll go to my pharmacy now. Can you get me some fentanyl? Yeah, I don't care if it's bootleg. Yeah. Oh, this guy's getting fentanyl to these guys. Let's steal his shit and kill his family. And then we'll get the market. So that's why we're having gang wars are renewed. People are calling for delivery. And everybody wants a piece of the pie because the cops are not looking. Because they're upset. They're upset. People didn't mean to.
And how much of this drug culture do you suspect is related to what we see going on in the political system? And I just want to mention, Rick, Venita forced these horrible videos on me the other day. She gets all this crazy stuff from her son, who's around your age, right?
We're crazy people.
Yes,
one of them is the televangelist Kenneth Copeland, and he's having this laughing fit. It's not even a real laugh. It's like a devil laughing. Yeah. Did you see it? It's his reaction to the announcement that Biden is the president-elect. And the other one is this other little televangelist man, and he's crying. He's got a room full of people, and he's crying, and he's praying that Biden and Harris, who support abortion, will find God's light. And so, I'm just wondering, do y'all think there's a connection between all this drug use and the actual madness we see going on in the population?
And just between you and I, this is incredible. This is Obama's greatest achievement, to make an old 77-year-old white man sound like he's Satan to evangelists when they elected president. Because Obama's like, oh, you wanted crazy. Let's go.
We got crazy.
He's the most moderate, lukewarm guy in the political realm. You can't make more middle. But no, I know. No, I think a lot of people are on drugs. A lot of white people put their kids on the ADHD drug, Ritalin. Then they put them on this, then antidepressants, because everybody's got to be on therapy and have an antidepressant because everybody's got something wrong, because you need to better yourself. That's why I don't have a lot of friends, because I hate these people. They're all crazy, and what I love is that they always criticize junkies, so-called junkies. But when you look into their pharmacy, like it's prescription drugs, but still benzos. Like, God, you got four different varieties. Cool stuff.
Well, I mean, I know that drugs are very prevalent in white areas, because I live in an all white area, and I used to stay away from my son, and I would hear mothers, and I would just be in awe. The conversations. they were taking Valium and Xanax and uppers and downies and this and that because they couldn't deal with little Johnny. And little Johnny was like 3. So woman was telling me, and I don't know, I'm not shocked, but still, it's just shocking every time you hear it. And I told her right to her face, I said, well, if you can't handle little Johnny and he's 3, well, maybe this is not your gig. Maybe being a mother is something that you shouldn't be doing. Maybe you should hang up your mother credentials and move on.
Except if little Johnny is 3, it's too late to have that insight.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, the child is acting like a 3-year-old. Well, why do you need Valium for your what? But you don't need no Valium to go get that soup to the side, silly ass haircut and those gel nails with that Louis Vuitton plastic ass bag. But when you guys that's why you have parents going crazy now. And I'm really afraid for the kids because a lot of these parents in these neighborhoods have not seen their kids since the day they were born, although they stay in the same house. Okay, their summer home, their boat, their picket fence with their hip roofs is more important. They honestly do not know their children. They have not seen these kids since the day they was born, and they're in the same house. Now suddenly, the children are in a lot of danger. And I have friends that are social workers, wonderful people. And the calls that they're getting now, and the children they have to rescue, the children are, especially middle class children, they're in a lot of danger. These parents are losing their damn minds. Some of them too, because once again, it's okay with unemployment when they hit it to poor people.
Mm-hmm.
But with this pandemic, it's a lot different. It's hitting people that are making $7.50 an hour. It's hitting people that are making $750,000 a year. And white people love their shit. Let me tell you that right now. Okay? They will take a book. Now, I'm being honest with you. I'm not saying a derogatory way. I'm telling you what I know to be the truth. They love their shit. And when you start talking about them losing their homes and losing their boats and losing their...
There you go. Weapons.
So what's next? They turn to drugs. Now the kids are being homeschooled. You got these damn kids that you ain't seen since the day they was born. You don't have
ammo.
I'm not trying to be funny.
Something's gonna happen.
You're threatening to take their home, their boat, their summer house. Connecticut is that kind of state.
Yeah.
They all about the money. Okay, that's why we don't worry about the COVID getting crazy and killing up so many people here. They do what the hell the governor said because they love their money.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is why you're having these things happen. So, yes, there's always been a lot of drugs in the suburbs. It's filtered from the suburbs to the city anyway. And on top of COVID, losing their jobs, the children are going to school. Plus, they're getting the COVID. A couple of my neighbors got children that have COVID in college, 2 separate colleges, just last week. Going there once a week. Just going there 1 day a week. They do the rest of it, telecommunications. They found they have COVID. So yeah, it's getting very dangerous out there. Very, very dangerous. Dangerous for the children, dangerous for me. A lady went off in the grocery store today for no reason. And she turned around and with a loud voice telling me. And so I had to explain to her that, when you're at a meat counter, sometimes they go to the bathroom. Sometimes they take a break. I've been coming here 30-something years. They're usually very efficient. And sometimes maybe the whole, all the clerks and behind the meat counter, maybe they're dead from COVID. You see a help wanted sign there. I've never seen one before. And, so I'm just telling you, it was just unprovoked. And the exes and you're waiting. And I'm always waiting like 20 feet away. And she just lost it. Well, I only want one thing. And she was just, and I'm like, and I said, well, so do I. So meanwhile, I'm getting a little scared, you know what I'm saying? Because,
Yeah, because is she crazy?
Right.
Because it's so important you get your shit right away. Get in line. Sorry, I'm being a New Yorker.
No, but I'm just trying to say that we are in very dangerous times. And I spend more time worried about protecting myself than the COVID. I can do the COVID. I'm not, but it's the people that are frightening me.
Yeah.
You don't want to go outside. So this is, no one wants to talk about these things, but I do have friends that are social workers, and children are being very abused now.
Yep.
Spouses are being very abused now. Not that they wasn't having their ass whipped before,
But there
but
was
having their ass whipped
release.
with no job is a little bit different when they were making their money, and on their boat and you have your ass whipped after drinking some, Dom Perignon and eating some black beluga caviar. It's a different kind of, but this is what's going on. And it's scary. I feel sad for them. They even look sad.
You were saying about my mother, who's French, and we have, very French education, and Italians are the same, Germans too, in a way, different.
Yes.
But when my mother comes here, she said, the only people who have the level of education of Europeans in America are African Americans and Hispanic Americans. I was like, really? Yeah. White Americans, where were they raised? And I realized that in Europe, what the old world and African Americans, Hispanic Americans, that also in a way are still the old world, because they know the ancient times, they know the wars happened, they know history. So they're ancient, like Europeans. It's true that African American kids fear their mother in ways that I only saw in Europe, in Latin countries. Like guys will be like, hey girl, and then the mom comes. Even in their 40s, they'll get hit by the mother. It's like that in Europe. Like in France, you never insult your mother. But the thing is, I saw a book from an American girl who lived in Paris and was astonished that French parents never yelled at their kids and kids obeyed. Why? Because we don't take them for morons. We explain. Mom, stop playing with that. Why? You're gonna hurt yourself. But why? Well, try. It hurts. Yeah, I told you. Oh, and we let them cry. You have to be accountable. We told you this hurts because don't touch it. You touch it, now you're on your own. That's your punishment. Not that we're gonna hit you or yell at you. Just and I know I saw that in a lot of kids. Like parents are like, yeah, you can do that. You can borrow my car, but here's what happens if you do anything to it. You see, but you don't see that in white people. White people's like, oh, Johnny, you broke the car, but mom, I don't care. If it were a better car, it would be okay, no. It's really like that among white Americans. Kids are really like that with their parents and parents.
No, Rick, I've seen some things that my son's sports, whether it's baseball or football, and they're very athletic and scholars first, mind you. But I'm gonna tell you, this thing I have heard, one little boy, and I don't call him. Clint will tell you about it one day, Michelle. He used to turn around and tell his mother to shut the F up. The first time I heard that in a Little League, they was like 10 years old. He would just turn around and call her by her name and tell her to shut the F, because and of course my child's the only black child there, the only black child in the damn town, the only black child in the school, on the bed. And I had a whole out of body experience because I know they act ignorant, but I just couldn't even. And Carl was like, and we looked at each other, and Clint looked back at me because you can hear him yelling like he does, and Clint said,
nothing.
Like my son just threw his hands up like, and then we got in the car, we talked about it, and Clint said, there's something wrong with him. Why? And and then I've seen the parents do that, or they'll say they'll just like pacify or ignore bad behaviors. And so I mean, all the children. I mean, we've had quite a few people, and I've known them. Kids have died from this new epidemic with drugs because it's a clean drug. See, there's a lot of drugs here.
The pills,
but in the suburbs they're clean.
Yeah.
And you can afford them. Good cocaine. You want good drugs? They don't got to take that. They ain't got to take that trash out there. They have good drugs because they can afford to buy the good drugs. It's I don't know about. I just know it's a sad day, and I feel sad. I feel sad that we can't deal with life. No one can deal with life anymore. I mean, the smallest things set people off, like regular life challenges.
But also, I think this is the drug epidemic in America is not happening in Europe. Why? Because in Europe you have access to healthcare. When you hurt, you go immediately. When you have a little, we have hypochondriacs in Europe, and people go to the doctor all the time for nothing. But at least in America, you can get access to appropriate drugs. So how do you feel better when you're depressed? A little cocaine feels good. Feel better. But then you have
my daughter-in-law told me when I was in Germany last December, we flew into Frankfurt, and we did some sightseeing while I was there, and I wanted to visit Frankfurt, but she wouldn't take me. She said no, because you walk down the street and there are just people laying in the street with needles hanging out of their arm.
I believe this.
Like, I don't want you to see that. So I said, okay.
We have that here.
I was there in December. She was here in New York in October, and she said it's way worse than anything you see in New York.
Worse. It used to be like that in New York in the 80s and 90s. In 70s, more in the 70s, actually, late 70s, early 80s. I remember as a kid, people in Times Square, early 90s with a needle in their arm, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know, Rick. I just feel sad.
Yeah.
Michelle and I had a conversation, and we've been around a lot of things. We've seen things, but I've never, ever had the desire to take those drugs. We know people, right, Michelle? We've seen the death and destruction from them, but I just never understood, and I know it's a lot, it's complicated, but how high does one want to be? Can't you just have, it's like, can't you have a glass of wine, smoke a little Native American weed?
You had good parents, strong parents that taught you values and took care of you, that cared actually about what you were thinking, didn't you?
Well, yeah. I mean,
most people don't have that, and drugs are pacifiers. They keep you in childhood. The childhood you never had, when you take drugs, you can be in it. And I noticed that a lot of heavy drug users had parents that ignored them, not necessarily molested them or ignored them. So that's why in the suburbs, parents, they go on their golf, their activities.
Yeah.
So kids are at home, discover weed, discover cocaine, discover fentanyl. Cool. Now I have something to do.
Weed's not a bad thing, Rick. I mean, I don't know anybody that smoked weed and died. Do you know anybody, Michelle?
No, but the problem is when you notice a lot of people take weed plus alcohol plus cocaine. It's not just weed. You have the weed smoker, but they mix up everything. And a lot of kids start with weed. And since they discovered that everything their parents told them about weed is wrong, which is, they're right about that, they say, well, everything else they said about cocaine, value must be wrong. I heard that from kids, like, you know what, I'm not going to trust you because you always told us that marijuana was bad and nobody gets addicted and now it's legal. So probably heroin's same thing, 12 years old.
Okay.
All right. Well, any final comments on this section of the book?
Just that the Falwells is one of the most dirtbag families in America.
Oh my God! When I read that, I'm like, they don't even matter.
Yeah, but the son being the dirtbag he is, and the father too.
Oh, the religion stuff.
Yeah. They're disgusting. There's nothing else to say.
They are.
There's nothing to say. There's a special pit in hell for them.
Yeah.
Look at the hypocrisy. These guys are so happy people are hurt. And when you discover what they're doing behind closed doors, they're it's like kinkier than kinky. It's like, I'm gonna watch my wife have sex with the pool boy.
Oh,
you didn't hear about that? He resigned, the son, Falwell Jr.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Liberty University. They have pictures. He was a cock. He liked that. He watched it with a glass of wine.
Yeah, and did you see the story on Giuliani?
Yeah, I watched the movie. It's a beautiful movie. It's disgusting, but I love it. It's a Chaplin movie, actually. It's better. It's not a comedy. It's very poetic.
what was it, a setup in a hotel room, and they caught him on video with his self-exposed, laying on the bed. I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah, tell me about it later, Michelle, because we have to keep all that crazy.
Yeah,
Oh, well, you know what, Rick? I send Michelle the videos that my son sends me, and we don't, you don't post those. We just kind of between each other.
Because
Yeah.
you don't want to get people on Facebook riled up. I like going on Facebook sometimes and going to a conservative thing and be like, Q was wrong. My name's Z. Q is a piece of. I'm the one with the truth. So Trump's gonna arrest Obama tomorrow morning, and I do stuff like that. And people hate me for that because they clearly understand that I'm making fun of them. So the hatred I get.
You enjoy it, okay, Rick?
No, but
Yeah,
I've asked 40 times.
Jesus is scary.
I've asked 40 times in 15 years of social media. I gave my address 15 times to strangers saying, come, come. Never came. and it's like everybody was saying there will be a civil war if Biden's elected. And there's no, because they're cowards. The truth to the matter is they buy guns and they collect them because they're never going to use them except when they have a chance, which is an isolated person doing a jog. But they're too cowardly to attack us in the open. They'll attack an isolated person like poor Ahmaud Arbery.
Right.
These disgusting people again. I'm not for the death penalty, but you understand but the problem why I'm not for the death penalty is that it's nobody else's call but the families. That's my idea. But yeah, no. So yeah, it's a crazy time and stay safe. And here's my thing: when you feel people are a little crazy, what I do is I just leave. I don't buy my stuff. If I was about to buy something, even if I had 10 minutes, you know what? Goodbye. I go somewhere else.
Oh no, Michelle knows I would drop something and leave a store in a heartbeat. That is not a problem for me. I don't need anything that bad. When I see somebody going real crazy, no. If I'm feeling that, I'll leave.
Yeah, because you know what? They don't deserve our attention. Go ahead, destroy the rack. Go ahead, insult people. Goodbye.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
We're off next week.
Yes.
So happy Thanksgiving. And we come back the following week, I think December 2nd, reading the third quarter of this chapter. So everybody stay safe, wash your hands.
I'm going in. I wash a lot. I go into bathhouses on both coasts a lot.
Don't do that. Stay out of bathhouses.
Yes, stay out of
but
bathhouses.
It's clean. You're washing up. You know what they don't say about COVID? They don't talk about it being sexually transmissible. And it doesn't seem to be.
No, I heard something recently that they had found it in sperm.
Oh, nice. Super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Another STD for Laurie to add to her revision to this book.
You know what? COVID is the what's the name of that commercial, that drink, Kool-Aid. He's the Kool-Aid monster. Every time you say, oh no, he comes in, oh yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I need a little humor trying to make COVID sound like a fun thing, but it's not.
Rick, you take care of yourself. Stay out of trouble. Stay out of bathhouses.
I'm gonna go to bed.
Stay out the maid's outfits, okay?
Yes, please.
Take care, both of you.
Okay.
See you soon.
Good night, Rick.
Take care.
Okay. Good night, Michelle.
Good night.
Michelle. Good night, Venita.
Good night, hon.